Welcome to the Ruffells Ad Break, the first of the Ruffells Roughcasts. I'm Tim McInnes, Managing Director. In this podcast, we dig into how the creatives we work with get the most out of every brief to deliver best results for you. At Ruffells, we're all about the people, and when we're working with best in breed, it's easy to get great results. We also reckon that when the majority of our effective brain time is spent at work, you might as well enjoy the ride. Joining us this episode is Lizzie Davidson, copywriter, coach, and self-confessed storytelling obsessive who loves nothing more than a good yarn with a smart human over a stiff gin. In this episode, we talk about being a LinkedIn whore, learning how to tell better stories, and how to work a brand story. But less from me and more from Lizzie D. Ruffells Ad Break.
That was beautiful, guys.
How good.
I think you've nailed that.
Yeah.
So, where do I come in?
Would you like to give that a go?
Oh, shit, no.
Ruffells Ad Break. How do you sort of get inside a business or inside the guts of what makes a consultant's day to day, and then help them convert that into sales? How does that work?
I start by talking to the people who know them best, who are their customers, right?
Okay.
Because we often don't know what it is we do as consultants, right? We don't understand where we add the most value. I once heard someone say that you're inside the bottle and you can't read the label on the outside, right? Mm-hmm. So we talk to the people who are outside the bottle, or I talk to the people who are outside the bottle, and that's usually people's customers where I start and ask them, why did you choose to work with this consultant? Because, let's face it, Tim, both you and I, we're pretty common, right? There's, hundreds of thousands of copywriters out there, many of whom are far better at what they do than I am. There's, hundreds of thousands of videographers out there.
Of course there are. Are they better though? Or is it just, it's framing, right?
I guess I don't think about it in terms of better, and I guess that comes to, the point I think I was going to make was that it actually doesn't matter that much it does matter how good you are at something, but once you've attained a certain level of professionalism and polish, what actually really matters is how people resonate with you, the energy you bring to the table, the personality you bring to the table. That's what makes people choose you. Yeah. And so when you go to, someone's client and go, like I went to your client and went, why did you choose Tim? Why did you choose the Ruffells crew? They would tell me all these things, and a bunch of them you probably never thought of yourselves before.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then it's like, how does Tim and the crew bring the most value to the table? Yep. And they tell you a whole nother bunch of things.
How do you get to talk to those people? Because that takes a whole load of trust, right? So the person you're
their
working
clients.
for. Yeah. Because do you find, is it just that the caliber of client that you're working with has such trust in you from the beginning that because that's not common, right?
I guess so. I'm a total LinkedIn whore. And the reason I am so, open and active on social media is because I want people to feel like they know me before they meet me. Yeah. And I think you said that to me when we met. You were like, I feel like
I think
we
videos,
know each other already.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm a big fan. Yeah, but really, you say things. I think there was something that you wrote in one of your posts around, sort of like the wankery of copywriting or something like that. And I thought, how brilliant, because for us anyway, like to be able to cut through the bullshit really early on, and to talk plainly and simply. And I know that's something that you talk about as well. Is that sort of cut out the jargon and make it really understandable and accessible for all of the people who are using that copy or who are using that coaching. It's really important not only to, I suppose, build trust with that client, but also to help get their message across, right? Is that the purpose of that?
Absolutely, 100%. And it's, because without trust, you haven't got anything, right? I mean, and that's like a given across the board in business, but it's particularly the case for people like us who sell our time and our services.
Yep.
Because if people don't like us, if people don't trust us, we might as well
We're done.
give up and go get a job, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And you know how much we'd hate that.
Well, impossible at this stage, I'd say.
Yeah, I'd say unemployable, frankly. Yeah.
Unemployable, absolutely. So in the last wee while, in the last sort of year or so, can you think of a job which has been really fulfilling for you? Has there any one particular piece of work that you've really sort of it's spoken to you, or that you feel particularly proud of? Or
Yeah. It's really hard to pick just one thing, and I know that's a total cop-out. So I guess I'm going to say it's kind of one sort of thing. And the thing that I get most, I guess, fills my cup most, is, that storytelling piece for consultants and coaches, because it's, when you learn to tell better stories, it's genuinely life-changing. And I know that from my own personal experience. I know it from the experience of the people I work with. I know it from talking to other people who I haven't necessarily worked with, but who have gone through that process of telling better stories. And when I talk about telling better stories, I guess I mean three things, actually. There's the stories you tell as a business, and there's a whole raft. There's kind of like 5 key stories that businesses could benefit from telling better. And then there's the stories you tell yourself. And I guess they're probably the most important of all, because, we can either hold ourselves back and damage ourselves with the stories we tell ourselves, which people do, day in, day out, or you can actually have your own back and propel yourself forward and be your own, biggest cheerleader.
Yep.
Which is a, more optimal set of circumstances.
Yeah, that's right. If you like what you're doing and like yourself, it's probably pretty useful.
Yeah, and it has that nice tangible side benefit of making you happier about life too, which I'm also a fan of.
That little perk.
Yeah. And then I guess there's like the stories you tell the world as well.
Yeah.
And that's the that's kind of like a bigger subset of your business stories, but it's like those are the stories that showcase your expertise, the stories that showcase your passions, the stories that tell people who you are.
Yeah, because you talk about also about how there's no such thing as a boring person, or it's just finding the story, right?
There's no such thing as a boring person, hey.
None.
No.
People are interested in something. You might not like what they're interested in.
Right.
But it doesn't make them boring.
That's right. They might be an arsehole, but, they're still not boring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. And so you've got to find that, right? You've got to extract that somehow. If you're working with, is that... I suppose what I'm trying to figure out is, how do you tell, are you trying to find an authentic story? Are you trying to find a story which will then go on and help that business grow, or that individual thrive? Or what are you looking for? Do you have any sort of commonalities, any common themes that you sort of go digging for?
Yeah, I mean, there's... it's not so much themes as like I'm looking for certain types of stories. And I mean, in terms of the theme, it's like, you got a good story when someone's eyes light up, right? I mean, you do this.
Yep.
Essentially we do the same thing. It's just our mediums are different,
Yep.
know. So when someone's eyes light up and they go into the zone, that you've got something good to work with. But the types of stories that I'm looking for, I talked about the 5 different stories that businesses, could be telling that benefit them. So there's the stories that sell, and those are your elevator pitch. Like before we came in here, you were talking about how
I'm terrible at my elevator pitch.
Terrible at your elevator
anything
pitch.
Short form, I can't do it.
Yeah. So helping people, crystallize that and have something to say, so that they're not constantly feeling like they're on the back foot when someone goes, So what do you do?
Oh, how hard is that though? It's so difficult.
It's so awful.
Right? You know?
Yeah.
And you sort of feel like, you know, you resort back to the title that's on your business card or on your email signature. And I wonder if it's actually meaningful. You know, does that mean anything to your clients or even to yourself? Or, you know, because everybody has the idea of what they do and how they present themselves to the world. And it sort of ultimately gets distilled down into one, you know, title which sits under the managing director or the whatever. But it doesn't talk to the person. It doesn't talk to the story of experience, the breadth of knowledge that person has gained, right? I think that's what you do. You go beyond the title, and you try and find those little pieces of magic.
That is absolutely right.
Is it true? And when you find the magic, do you know? Is it that you've?
Yeah.
Is it like gold mining? What is it?
It's exactly like gold mining. It's kind of. I was trying to think about what I do, you know, because sure I'm a writer, but it's like it's kind of more than that, and I don't necessarily see myself as a creative. People go, oh, you're so creative. I'm like, nah, I'm not really. I just go hunting for gold. And, you know, it's kind of like being a mirror in a sense. You know, I sit in front of people and I reflect their stories back to them. And often no one's ever done that for them before, you know? And just that process of asking them questions, asking them more questions, you know, and listening to people properly. Again, you know, that's far too rare in this world, you know. People don't listen very well. And I was thinking about, you know, my values this weekend. This weekend was a bit of an epiphany for me, actually, Tim. I've been working on my kind of purpose and a whole bunch of stuff. But so I was thinking about my values this weekend, and I kept coming back to being present and how I really admire people who can be truly present, and how it's something that I think is probably at the heart of what I do, is trying to be really present with people and make them be really present with me. And out of that trust and presentness, it's really quite easy to crystallize the important stuff out of that.
And because they live with that, or the brand lives with that, but they maybe haven't seen it before, you then present back to them a version of themselves that they maybe had always aspired to. Yeah. You know, and then you can tell the world, right? Yeah,
exactly. And I think often, you know, like I don't think there's often a lot of surprise in what I give back to people. I think it's more a sense of recognition. It's like, there it is. That's that thing that I've been trying to say for years, you know?
Yep.
And that's what I aim for. It's not to surprise and delight people. I mean, I aim to surprise and delight people by, you know, the experience of working with me, but not what I do.
Yeah.
That should be a process. That should be that, there it is moment.
You were just going to say process, right? And I think that's the thing. So I was going to come back to, you said I'm not a particularly creative person. I think there's a misconception that to be a creative, that, you know, we sort of find these things out of nowhere, out of the ether. And I suppose there is a part of that which is true. But you have to know where to look, right? Yeah. There's a process. Yeah. And so being a creative or having being in the creative industries it's not by mistake. It's not by mistake that we got here.
No,
and that
true.
However many 20 odd years later that we're still here doing it. It's because we've understood the process and we've understood how to sort of dig in and find some of those gold nuggets and then reflect them to the world, right?
Yeah, and I'm really quite obsessive about documenting my processes and refining them because, you know, you have to fall back on your process a lot as a creative. I'm not that I am a creative, as a creative. But you know what I mean? It's like, it's intense what we do. You know, being present with people, bringing that energy, looking really closely, listening really well. And you get tired. Yeah. And, you know, on those days when you're a bit out of steam, that's when you fall back on the process and the process catches you.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So one of the things that we were talking about or looking at was sort of light bulb moments, right? And was there a moment, and you sort of said it's not necessarily that there was a light bulb moment, but maybe there are multiple light bulb moments, or that you've just said you've had an epiphany of sorts, to be present. So was there a moment for you where it all began, or was it you've talked about people along the way with other mentors or coaches who have sort of given you keys, unlocked certain parts of your brain. Was there a certain point where you sort of thought, I'm doing the right thing, I don't want to do anything else right now? Do you have those moments that you can think of easily, or?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a collection of those moments. In terms of, I guess, people who I'm grateful to that have helped me get to, where I am now. My last boss for firing me. I mean that with genuine gratitude, because I didn't have the balls. I did not have, I don't know why we say balls.
Ovaries.
I did not have the flaps, Tim, to do it myself. I really didn't.
I was going to try and keep it together just then. I thought, bollocks, no, it's too good. It's too good. Great.
No, really seriously, had I not been pushed, I would probably still not be running my own business, and it is genuinely the best thing that's ever happened to me. So there's that. So, huge gratitude for that. But also to the people who, when I was made redundant, I do ham it up and say fired, but, redundant, fired, whatever, potato,
you moved on.
Right?
Potato,
yeah.
potato.
Exactly. Potato. Yeah. Lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah, the people that said, Lizzie, why don't you start your own business? I'm like, shit, that's a radical idea.
Yeah.
Genuinely astonished.
Yeah. Great.
I was like, why not? Sounds good. Because I looked at all the jobs out there. I'm like, I don't want to do any of those jobs. They look really boring.
Did it sound good, or did it sound terrifying? Or did it sound good and then you started and it was terrifying? Or was there no terror?
There wasn't a lot of terror, to be honest, because I was like, I'm not, it was a very low risk business model.
Yep.
Essentially it was, set up your own solo consultancy with zero overheads whatsoever. I already owned a laptop, so it's like
win-win.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so, very minimal business model. And so there was not that fear that comes with, I'm going to hire people, I'm going to rent a big flash office, I'm going to invest in lots of gear. Yep. And I was pretty confident that I could find enough people to pay me money for writing stuff to pay the bills.
Yep.
So yeah, not a lot of nervousness. I think the thing was not so much nervousness as pride. I really wanted to do it well. I wanted to be a success.
Yep.
And part of that was I wanted to make a lot of money. So the first few years were kind of about that. And I realized that that's not necessarily a very appealing thing to say, and it's not something that women are taught to say in public.
Yeah, sure.
But, fuck it. I wanted to be, I want to be paid well for what I do. And society recognizes success on one level, with financial reward. And so there was that. But once I'd nailed that, it was like, that's not enough anymore. Now I actually I realized halfway through this year that I was, earning lots of money as a purpose was no longer floating my boat. And it was like, I need a purpose that's bigger than that.
So it's part of the deal, but it's just not the sole thing that's driving it anymore.
Yeah, exactly so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's right. I think that's great.
Yeah.
I think you should set out and achieve whatever the hell you want.
Totally.
Why not? Why not? There are no rules. I think people worry too much about sort of the sense of, I'm supposed to behave like this or that or the next thing. I think that's rubbish. So, yeah.
But I think it is important to have that, the bigger purpose, definitely.
Yeah.
For me, I think the money thing was a growing up thing as well. It was like, can I make this work? Can I stand on my own 2 feet?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I can. So great.
And especially, like you say, the pride thing. I mean, we're in Christchurch.
Sure.
It's a small town.
Sure.
You bump into people. It's not
Sure.
like, it's really weird, isn't it? Because in Wellington, sort of the agency model is very different. It's very inclusive. People go for drinks, people have friendships and do all that kind of
That's
stuff.
just weird shit. That
Well, yeah, well, that's right. It's a very Christchurch-centric thing that happens here, and only here in this country, I think, which is people have this sort of very parochial, this is my patch, don't step on it kind of mentality.
I know, I have noticed that. I haven't been hugely involved in the Christchurch agency scene, even though I've worked in it for 20 years, because I guess the agency I worked for a large chunk of that was very focused outside of Christchurch and didn't necessarily really see itself as a Christchurch agency predominantly.
Yeah.
But people have talked about this a lot.
Yeah.
And it's true that there's not a lot of, kind of collaborative or even social stuff that goes on here, like becoming a solopreneur and joining that community. I was like, look, there's stuff going on over here. This is really nice.
Stuff going on here, and that's a bit weird, and those people are clearly, making the most of whatever.
So that was really refreshing after kind of, like, you're right, the sort of creative industries, the creative agencies here don't tend to hang out much.
No, it's strange, isn't
Bizarre.
it? Bonkers.
Yeah, I don't know why. Why
and
is
especially because so many people have worked overseas or lived overseas and come here, and it's not, again, by accident that we're in Christchurch. We've decided for whatever reason that this is why we're here. And yet there's this, I don't know what it is. I don't know.
I
It's
don't
very
know what
clicky.
it is either, actually.
Yeah.
I've not really given it much thought before now.
It's
But
a bit
I'm
sad.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
It is a bit of a shame, really, because it's like, when I think about all the incredibly talented people I know in the creative sector and how much they have to bring to the table, it's like, I don't know, hang out more, guys. You're all nice people. Like, I work with lots of you.
Chill out.
Chill out.
Okay, chill.
Get a drink.
I do know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Hey, can we talk a little bit about, we thought we would dive in. You gave us a few examples here, and we thought we'd talk about Hector's gin. And not just because I like gin, which I do. I like to have a glass of gin. How do you drink your gin? Do you drink it straight? Do you drink it with tonic?
I drink it lots of different ways, actually. I do like a gin cocktail too, like a martini.
Nice.
Yeah.
I have it with soda. I just have gin and soda with a twist of lemon.
Yeah.
So I think tonic overpowers the flavour of the gin sometimes. But
Yeah, and particularly with such good and interesting gins, right?
You want to taste it.
Yeah.
So why
you
not?
do.
So I thought that was really interesting because I was having a look at the website, and the story that's on there is, gosh, it's well put.
Thank you.
And it didn't feel forced, and it didn't feel like it was inauthentic. It really felt like it was of the place. And it's interesting because I've used that where of this place. I've used that phrase so many times, and there it was, and beautifully put. And the story right the way from volcanoes and earthquakes, so it's all tied in, and birds and flora. It's great. Yeah. So what was it about that job? Because I can see you in it, having stalked you forever on LinkedIn and some of the projects we've done. I can see you're in it, your voice is in it, but it doesn't for a second overshadow the work for the client, So how do you get that balance right? What was it about that project that you really enjoyed? And what was the value that you brought to that? Because I can see it, but for anybody who, and we'll put a link on the podcast, what was it that you brought? What value did you add to that project?
I guess I should probably start by saying what an atypical project that was for me. And I thought, twice about including it in the lineup, because I don't really often work with brands, retail brands, but just occasionally something comes along that's too good to say no to, and that was one of them. The voice of Aaron, who owns Akaroa Craft Distillery and makes that gin, lovely chap, and we had this great conversation, this great briefing conversation. But it was at the very end when I said, and so have you put any thought into how you want your brand to sound or feel, the voice of your brand? Normally people are useless when they ask that question. They're like, I don't know, friendly.
Don't know, something quite good.
Innovative. I'd like it to be a bit like Apple. Sorry, I'm being a bitch. Anyway, Aaron did not say that. He said, I wanted to talk with the voice of the peninsula. And I was like, all right.
Unpack that one.
Yeah. So that was a good brief.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know how I did it. I just went away and did a whole bunch of research, and then just like I do any project, right? You just go away, you do a whole bunch of research. In this one, I didn't talk to a whole bunch of people because there weren't a whole bunch of people to talk to. So I guess I went and talked to the people of the past.
Yep. Yep.
And then just let that kind of marinade for a bit and wrote it.
How long before you got it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there's if you're anything like me, it's, you pull a whole bunch of references, and you take the sort of the micro nuggets from a series of conversations and emails and phone calls and this, that, and the next thing. You look at maybe what they've got existing as collateral, and then you go, well, try and mold those things. How long is it something that you're about to get it and then you get it, or is it that you go, shit, I don't know where to start with this one? How did that work? It
was it really varies. Hey, that process, it can take up to a month or more, even sometimes, of pulling that stuff and having those conversations before you get that crystallizing moment. But I think with this as well, because I live on the peninsula, because a lot of the stuff he was that we talked about was already, I guess, dear to me. That process happened quite quickly. Like the brand started talking to me pretty fast. And then it's just a case of just catching it on paper. It's it was actually a really easy job, that one. It just kind of happened.
Did you have to have some of the products so that you could sample?
Well, ordinarily I would say yes, Tim, but I was out of luck because they hadn't brewed any yet, distilled any, I should say. So that was disappointing. That was a downside.
Sometimes we get some perks.
but they have been hugely generous ever since. Yeah. So I now have lots of gin.
So when you think about that as a final output, as that story, what do you hope? Do you hope beyond doing the work that people take something from it? What do you hope for that?
I guess my hope is always to give people a story to tell, whether I'm working with coaches and consultants, whether I'm working with a brand. It's like it is about giving them their own story to tell. And I know that with with Hector's, with Akaroa Craft Distillery, that is very much what has happened. Like in fact, it's like they have used that story everywhere, to the point where I'm like, wow, you guys could give a masterclass in, working a brand story to death. And they have a tasting room in Akaroa, and people go in and they can taste the gin, and they're I don't know what you call gin tasting rooms.
I don't know.
People.
A den, a tasting den.
A tasting
I
den.
don't know. It sort of feels like that, doesn't it?
Tasting den is nice. So the gin sommeliers, they tell the story to the people when they pour them the gin and they taste it. And I know that Aaron, tells it to media, and they have it on everywhere. And it is a real thing for them, which is beautiful. Yeah. And it is also, and it's also being hugely successful. And I think it's kind of like the gin is great, obviously. But I think the story has played a part in it. I think that people resonate with that story of something so local. Yeah. There's a sense of connection with that.
Mythology, isn't it? The mythos.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, which is wonderful. I think that, people want to connect with things, right?
They do.
People desperately want to connect at the moment. And stories are massive. I was talking to somebody the other day about how, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, companies can sit in the same room and hear the same brief, but come up with completely different approaches. Yeah. And only one of those stories is probably the right one. Do you know what I mean? And it's about...
Do you think so?
I do. The right one at the right time. I mean, it's not to say that it couldn't be different under different circumstances, but I think to be successful in what we do, is as much about timing as it is about experience, and that people will be attracted to our services based on where they are in their brand journey.
Oh yeah, God, yeah,
you.
absolutely.
And if we're in the same place and we're trying to do the same thing that they want, whether they're asking for that or not, because they could be asking for something completely different, happens quite a lot with us. We suggest a different approach.
You don't want that.
Well, yeah, often that's the case though, right?
Yeah, of course.
And it's listening to what they need rather than the thing that they're asking for sometimes.
Yeah, that's so true.
So I think timing is probably it's just as important as process, I think half the time. But yeah, that's cool. I'll go and check them out. And are they doing, what's their product range like?
So they've got, I think they've just launched their fourth flavour. They've got an ocean wash one that's made with French farm Pinot Noir, which is really nice. They've just launched a lemon verbena, which I haven't tasted, and coming up, I think, is wild strawberry and rosehip from Little Akaloa, which I'm quite looking forward to. That'd be kind of nice, little fruity little summer number.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, cheeky little fruity beast.
Yeah, that's right, and why not? Hey, so what do you think? So if that piece of and what is it? Is it brand development or is it copy? What are you calling that?
I just call that brand storytelling.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like all of what I do is brand storytelling, but it's also content marketing.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
there's not a it's on a continuum,
isn't
right?
it? Yeah, isn't it? And then they've just been particularly good at picking up, the work that you've done with them, and running with it.
Yeah, they've just used it and used it and used it. They understand branding, and they're also working with a very talented, graphic designer who also understands branding. And so, all the branding is the repetition of the same message over and over again, right? That's right. That's it.
Yep.
So I know that brand. Yeah, the right message, I guess, at the right... Okay, it's a little more complex than that, but essentially...
Just the same thing over and over and over. Don't worry about it, just repeat.
Just repeat. No. Yeah. Okay, you're right. It is more complex than that, but you get what I'm trying to say. Absolutely. Okay, awesome. Yeah.
So what about relationships? How important are relationships?
No, they don't matter.
Don't matter at all. Because how many times have you been, and I think it's a little bit like I was saying or sort of starting to say about how often the thing that you're asked for isn't necessarily the thing that that you deliver, So how important do you think it is to have a clear relationship and set boundaries up front and make sure that everybody kind of knows what they're dealing with so that you can get the best results? Is that a true thing for me to say? And it sounds obvious.
No, it's totally critical.
Totally critical.
Yeah. I mean, I guess... boundaries, man. How important are boundaries? Relationships are that whole trust thing again that we were talking about. If you have trust, then it's easy to set good boundaries. If you don't have trust, then people think every time that you set a boundary that you're trying to get one over them. Don't know what that's about. That's just bizarre behavior. But, that's the... But I don't work with people who... I can't feel that trust with. And it's so I guess I've got really firm boundaries. I will say no to work quite a lot. I only do a few things because, again, it's like to your point of people coming to you and saying they want one thing and actually needing something else. Mm-hmm. Actually, I only have a very limited menu of things that I will do for people. And if I don't think that they need that thing when they come to me and I don't think I can add value, then I won't do it. But mostly because I'm really clear about what those things are and talk about them in a lot of detail, the process that they will go through with me, the pain points that I address, the benefits that they will experience. It's quite easy for people to diagnose. I do need some new website copy. Because my website copy's shit. So and Lizzie's process sounds great. So I'm going to do that. Yeah,
that's really important. It sounds very similar.
Yeah.
Very similar to the way that we work.
Yeah.
Can you think of a favourite Ruffells moment? So it doesn't have to be a piece of work or what have you. It could have been an interaction you had with one of the team. Or is there anything at all that you think of favouritely with us? And I mean, I ask you that under duress probably. But
no, I'm so glad you asked that, because honestly, I'm going to sound
I'll pull a weird face.
Sound like such a sap, but you are my favourite Ruffells moment. And I'm not just saying that because you are sitting here to be ingratiating.
Yeah.
I just, you're one of those kind of
weirdos.
You're one of those weirdos. No, you're one of those people that, when I talk about great consultants, you often spring to mind because you are someone who has an enormous energy and enthusiasm for what you do, enormous skill, and you really understand the importance of being present, of bringing the energy into the room, of building those relationships, of all those things that really matter. You just get it. I don't know if it's because you intuitively get it or you've learned it over time. It's probably a combination of both, right? So, meeting you for the first time and realizing that you were this, the real deal, essentially, and, a nice guy as well as a weirdo was a real moment.
Well, yeah. I'm not very good at accepting compliments. I think that was one. So,
yeah, it totally was one.
So
it totally was one.
Thank you.
And I think that, coming back to what you were saying about the Christchurch creative scene not being, that close-knit, it is a tragedy because there are all these beautiful, beautiful people out there who could be connecting. I feel like you're a good friend, even though I don't know you that well. I feel, like we have a good connection and a good rapport. And I really like that, There should be more of that.
There should be more of that. Yeah. Well, what a fantastic place to wrap things up. Thank you very much for coming along and having a chat. That's been fantastic.
Thank you for having me.
There's been nothing in there that surprised me, but I know how you work, so so that's good. But for anybody who doesn't know you and needs either some content marketing or copywriting, or to have a chat with somebody who's actually going to listen and be present,
I'll do my best.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
Then I would wholeheartedly recommend Lizzie. So with that in mind, how do people get in touch with you? How do is it people best to follow you on LinkedIn or go to a website?
I mean, you can definitely follow me on LinkedIn and sniff me a bit and see if you like how I smell. Unfortunate.
Well, you've got a nose for telling stories, right? I think that's you. I think I read that somewhere.
Definitely
right?
A nose for telling stories.
Yeah.
But my website is lizziedavidson.com, so I'm easy to find.
And we'll put links in the description so that you're super easy to find. And for people who are consuming this on YouTube or on Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts, please like and subscribe, share if you've found this of any interest or entertainment whatsoever. And until the next time, thank you very much, Lizzie.
Thank you, Tim.